Welcome to the show both feared and revered by man and beast, the heliosblog. Today, Jordan Peterson interviews a cancelled comedian, believe it or not. Let's get into it.
The reason she's alone is because she's difficult.
Women are not accepting the bare minimum.
Women fuck men they respect.
All the women who say things like, I'm strong, independent, I don't need no man, like, y'all impress me.
Women just gaslight each other and say what they want to hear.
Been planning this opening, which I don't usually do, because I like to do things spontaneously, but I have to get this one right. Okay, so you got to help me get this straight. Okay, so now you're a comedian and you got canceled for a domestic assault joke, and then in response to that, instead of apologizing like a good boy, you put up a joke ad site about special needs helmets to protect the people who are offended by you, and now, to get yourself out of trouble, you're going to come on my podcast.
I never
That's
said
your
that.
plan.
I was hoping it would make things way worse. And I'm hoping we can drive sales to that very real website about the helmets.
Yes, anyways, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I thought the joke was funny,
Thank
risky,
you.
and funny. And I thought your response was dead on. Like, one of the things I've noticed
Do not back down if you're accused of something like this.
is that
Okay, there's a principle in martial arts that goes as follows. The attacker always has the advantage. Okay, if you're on the back foot, you're going to get slammed. So just keep that in mind.
people who are harassed by sensorial-minded nullwits almost always back down and apologize. And then my sense of that is that a mob comes after them first for whatever hypothetical sin they've committed, and then they apologize, and a second mob comes after them for that.
Exactly.
And then they lessen their own character by the false apology, and they embolden these idiot accusers. And so why did you decide, when this blew up around you, and I mean in some ways it's a tempest in a teapot, but when this blew up around you, why did you decide to take the strategy that you took? Why weren't you like racked with guilt and apologetic? And
Because it's just comedy. I'm just doing what's funny to me. It's never any deeper than that, nor should it be for anybody. I'm saying things that my imagination drums up, that makes me happy, release endorphins in my head, that makes my life happier. And all I do is share those thoughts with other people in hopes that it makes their life easier.
well, I've been watching what you do on your specials, and you're continually interacting with the audience, which, and correct me if I've got this wrong, I mean, a lot of the comedians that I've spoken to, they spend a lot of time preparing their sets and practicing, but you're doing, it seems to be something that's much more akin to spontaneous wit. And that's a dangerous thing to do, because you could easily be not funny.
Oh, high risk, high reward, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's also that because you're doing that,
Means he's going off the cuff. Okay, interesting. Sure, why not?
you don't have a lot of time to exactly think through what you're going to say, right? I mean, if something strikes you as amusing, you pretty much have to go for it. And if your head's full of censorship-related thoughts, you're going to be not funny in about 15 seconds.
Right, exactly.
So
You have to let the intrusive thoughts win in comedy. You have to. What comes, if you're a naturally funny person, the first thing that comes to your mind should be the funniest thing to you most of the time in a comedic situation.
And it has to be the first thing. Yeah, you know, if you're writing a multiple choice test, by the way, if you second guess your intuition about the right answer, you're more likely to be wrong with the second guess.
Is that true?
Yeah, that
that
immediate
makes complete
response.
sense.
Yeah, that immediate response tends to be better. Yeah, well, and it's a weird thing, because that thing that's comical inside you, that's providing you with the intuition for the jokes, it has to be in quick
Timing's everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be a quick relationship with the audience. Yeah, timing is absolutely everything. You want to say the most pointed thing at exactly the right time. And so what do you think, or maybe, I don't know if you've thought about it, what do you think is, well, first of all, how broad scale do you think this rebellion against what you said actually is? How many people do you think are behind it? And why do you think it's become such a big deal?
It's probably a few dozen thousand, which sounds like a lot until you remember there's 8 billion people.
Right, it's just a small group of very motivated people that are idiots.
In the world.
Yeah.
And I would say 90% of the small majority that is upset with me doesn't go to comedy shows anyway, or wouldn't vibe with me as a person anyways, which is fine.
Right.
They're just virtue signaling. Oh, you're such an evil person. Let me make myself look good by taking you down.
They're probably not that funny. I watched a couple of them today on YouTube.
I can imagine.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, they're the sort of people that you just want to. What do you want for them? You want them to spend eternity in a hell composed of nothing but people like them talking to them.
Oh,
That'd be
so
good.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
Hilarious.
Right.
But that's the thing, is it's like whether you enjoy what I do or not, you don't even have to know it exists. If I'm your problem, if you and I are face to face and you have a problem with my comedy that I tell, that I admit to the world, right? If you just remove yourself from me, if you do something as simple as just turn around, there is an entire planet behind you for you to go explore and live the rest of your life. You don't.
No, you have to impose your sensorial thoughts on everybody, and they have to think exactly like you, so you can be like a wave of NPCs. Otherwise, it's not okay.
Ever have to think about me. You don't have to talk about me. I don't like screamo heavy metal music. Guess how often I think about it or talk about it? 0% of the time. You just remove yourself from the situation.
Literally.
I see no harm in trying to make people laugh as a general intention.
Yeah, well, I also
of
don't
course not.
understand exactly, from a purely logical perspective, what the people who are complaining exactly expect from you, because, and maybe it is that they, A, have no sense of humor, and that's highly likely, or that they're doing something we can talk about, which is gaining some kind of benefit from their complaints, some virtue signaling. I really see that with the men in particular. Well, I really care a lot for women.
I know.
Yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah, I saw one TikTok video who was like, I have a wife and I found this severely disrespectful. I was like, okay, you cuck.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Literally.
Yeah. He probably thinks that's a form of
this?
foreplay.
Yeah, what do you want to get more pussy outside of your wife? Like, chill out. You're already married. She already respects you. Like, what do you
Yeah,
want
well, I
from
used
me?
to see when I had demonstrations around me, which used to be more common than they are now, which is just as well. The worst people I ever saw at those demonstrations weren't the hairdo women who were screeching like fishwives, but the men that were hypothetically there to support them. Man, I tell you, I couldn't even look at some of those guys without having a shudder run up my spine. There's almost nothing worse than a man who tries to worm himself in with a group of women by pretending to be more on their side than the women are.
Right. It's called the sneaky effer strategy, right? It's like, maybe you've heard of this in fish, right? So there's like a fish. So they have two strategies for mating. One is being a giant fish, and that's what the girl fish normally choose. They choose like a big fish. But there's fish that have evolved to look just like the women, and the girl fish just let them swim beside them because they look exactly like them. And then they sneakily impregnate her. That's literally the strategy these guys are doing. Oh, I'm such a great person. Wouldn't you want to lay me? No, girls are not attracted to girls. If they were, they would marry a girl. They're attracted to a man. So if you're acting more like a girl to get her, then guess what? You're going to have a bad time.
Actually are, when their actual motivation is to use that. What was that? Gad Saad, the evolutionary psychologist who works at Concordia, he called that the sneaky fire routine. Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's actually a phrase from evolutionary biology. I'll tell you a funny story that goes along with that. Okay. This is hilarious.
I literally
and
brought it
so
up
telling.
immediately.
So primatologists who studied orangutans figured out a long time ago that there are two variant male types of orangutan. Okay, so there's like, orangutans tend to hang around in trees, they're arboreal. But the males who become dominant in a given territory get so large, sort of like a linebacker in football, and they have these big fat pads around their face that are circular. They get so large they can't really go in trees anymore. And the females come to them. But then there are other males in the vicinity for who the primatologists thought were adolescents for a very long time, because they look like adolescent males and they hang around in the trees. But they turn out to be, many of them, fully mature males whose development into the linebacker is forestalled by the fact that they're not at the top of the pecking order. Right, and so their strategy is sneaky rape.
Jesus.
Right. So it doesn't take much of an imagination to map that onto the you know, the feminist male who's so on the side of women that, you know, he gets to be the friend who can entice some poor girl into bed when she's at her lowest point.
Right.
So it's almost like their own insecurity and lack of manhood. Manhood probably isn't the best word to use, but it stunts their own evolution.
Right.
Well, it requires that they take a different pathway to mating success. They
The
can't
worst
use dominance.
possible
Yeah,
one.
yeah, right, right.
So pathetic.
Yeah. So why did you decide to come on my podcast?
I'm a huge fan, man.
Oh, well,
I
thank you,
find
sir.
listen, you and I have never met. I'll be truthfully honest. I haven't done extensive research into everything you've done, but I find you to be a very kind man and very well-spoken and someone who stands on their morals and the realism of society today. And I think
So he doesn't know Jordan at all, but he just went off the first impression. He's just seen his his YouTube videos, I guess.
that is incredibly rare, and I just highly appreciate you.
Oh, well, thank you. I wasn't fishing for compliments, but
No,
I do
of course, that is
appreciate
why-
the
that is
fact that
why.
they emerged. Well, I'm curious partly, too, because I think it's fair to say that your primary fan base is women. I mean, I'm not certain of that,
Yeah,
but it is
definitely.
the case. Okay, and is it almost always women that you interact with in the crowd?
No, not at all. It's totally
Okay.
total luck of the draw, whatever happens. I mean,
Okay.
women yell out.
I see. So the point is he uses his wit to outwit guys, and it's attractive to the girls. I get it. That's cute. It's classic.
Out the most for sure. Like they'll heckle the most, so that will draw more adamant crowd work, like that I didn't necessarily intend on doing. But overall, no, it's just luck
Is
of the
that
draw.
something that's particularly characteristic of your shows? Because I would think,
Yes.
yeah, right.
Oh, it's
because that's
bad.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
okay.
I've kind of created my own crowd work monster in a way. A friend of mine put this in perspective for me. If I got popular from doing crowd work, which was a very specific strategy, a lot of I only post my crowd work because I don't feel like burning through material. Comics build for minimum a year, 2, 3 years to
Right,
build
right.
an hour-long show, right? I would feel like a total piece of shit if I let you pay money to come see the exact same material you just saw for free online. So crowd work being a very unique circumstance that really isn't to be duplicated at any other show that you do, because you're not going to meet the same person who's been through the same circumstance, or has the same story to tell, right? So this is a very unique thing that you could share, and it doesn't burn through any of your material at all.
So that's
But-
why you've been making the specials on YouTube out of crowd work.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because you can make them permanent, and you said it doesn't interfere with the novelty of a prepared show.
Yes.
And so you do prepared material as well.
Yeah, I have 2 full specials on YouTube that are
Okay,
fully
so
material.
I've only seen the crowd work. Okay.
Oh, you watched the red flags
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
So I specifically did that special because I was getting popular for doing red flag crowd work just on TikTok, and it got so bad to the point where I'd be in the middle of working on material, and people would just be yelling out like, "Do red flags," or just yelling out like flip flops or what, like mama's, like yelling out their own red flags without any context at all. So I was like, fine, I'm gonna do one special at the biggest red flag city there is, Miami, at the Miami
Okay. Hilarious.
Improv, and then that's like the final statement at closing the chapter on my red flag crowd work. Now I don't do it anymore. Now I think this special is like 50 minutes long of me just doing full crowd work for 50 minutes with the people in Miami, and it was a lot of fun. I was happy to close the chapter though.
Okay,
but
so
in doing that,
why did you close it, and why were you happy to close it?
because it does ruin the show when people yell out. I wanted to go, okay, I know you like this thing I do, so here's that. Now
Right,
you
right, I
have that
see.
final product. I did this specifically for you guys. Now let me grow to do the kind of comedy I want to do. And I'm still growing and I'm still learning. I'm 28 years old. Most comics that are at top of their game today probably just started at the age I'm at right now. So I mean, I have a lot of learning and growth
Right,
to do.
right.
Right,
That
right,
makes
right.
sense.
How long have you been doing comedy professionally?
12 and a half years.
So since you were 16?
15, yeah.
15, 15. Were you funny before that?
Yeah, I was always like class clown, making my friends and family and laugh. I didn't know comedy was a career or even a job until I was about 14. And I kind of discovered who like Dane Cook and Dave Chappelle were. And those guys were at the pinnacle of comedy at that time. So I just learned, I studied them, fell in love with the art form, and I started doing open mics when I was 15 after school on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And everything just kind of snowballed. And nobody in my family has ever been to college, so there was no pressure to do
So you just practiced, I see. You just organically happened.
anything after high school. Everyone in my hometown kind of does the exact same thing. They just work at like
How
the
big is
Honda
your
plant.
hometown?
About 1,200 people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
one stoplight that could have easily been a four-way stop.
Right,
There's
right.
Never
I
any
know.
traffic there at all.
Yeah, but that's a mark of attainment to have at least one light in town.
Of course.
Yeah. I came from a little town in northern Alberta. It had about 2,500 people, and
Oh, yes,
it was a
fully
big deal when we
understand.
got our first stoplight, which was like utterly unnecessary.
They just got a Dollar General on the outskirts of town, and everyone's like, "We got a new grocery store." Like they
Yeah.
are loving it.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
can
very
remember.
simple town. Though.
Yeah, I can remember too that when the Kentucky Fried Chicken came to town, that was also a big deal.
When you got a KFC, that's so funny.
Yeah.
In hindsight, it's one of those places growing up, you go, "Oh, this is so boring, can't wait to get out of here." But looking back, I had such a wonderful childhood. Even going back
Indeed.
now, I went back maybe a couple of months ago because I had some
What's
shows.
the name of the town?
It's called North Lewisburg, Ohio. It's a very, very small town. About Marysville, Ohio is the closest city to it, I suppose.
So he grew up in like the boonies, like literally the middle of nowhere. Now I understand why he's so resistant to heckling, because the people that could actually hurt him are not nowhere near him, right? And he's already been tested against those people growing up, right? So he has like his own small community, his own little world, and he's just branched out from there.
And I was doing shows not far from there and had to drive past it for a tour like 2 months ago, and I stopped through there. Nothing had changed, and I thought that was beautiful. Like I live in LA now, and I tour constantly, but people get so wrapped up into what they think the rest of the world is actually talking about or actually cares about.
Right.
It's not true at all. I saw kids riding their bikes and running around playing outside when I was driving through town. I go, I haven't seen that in years. People weren't on their phones. Even people at the gas station when we stopped in, the workers in there were talking, hanging out. Nobody was just on their phones scrolling. We become so detached from the rest of the world when we live in certain environments. It's
How long
so
have you lived in
frustrating.
LA?
It'll be 11 years in January.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
after I graduated high school early at 17, and I moved out and just couch surfed for the first like year and a half.
Okay, so what did you do in LA? Okay, so first of all, you said you started doing open mics when you were about 15? Where?
The Columbus Funny Bone in Columbus, Ohio. I went on the comedy club's website when I kind of figured out open mics were the thing to start with. I don't remember how I found that out. I remember going to their website, finding out it's 21 and up, as most comedy clubs are due to liquor license. And the owner's email was on there. And like a naive kid, I just emailed the owner. I was like, hey, this is my name. This is how old I am. I know I'm supposed to be 21 and up, but if I have like a parent guardian with me, could I come in to try the open mic? And any rational businessman would say, no, I'm not gonna risk my liquor license for some kid to come in here and tell jokes. Like, what could possibly come out of that? But for some odd reason, he said yes. And it allowed me an opportunity to go and practice and enjoy this new thing that I was just doing for fun. I had no idea anything like this could ever happen to me. It was just something I was doing.
So he was just kind of living life. Well, you know what they say. Better lucky than skilled.
Doing for fun to like make my grandpa laugh.
And did you make your grandpa laugh?
Oh my God, he was my #1 fan. I miss him every single day.
Oh yes. Oh, so did you have a good time in Columbus doing this?
I did, but it's like most Midwestern towns. There's a ceiling, you know. And if you have bigger dreams, you have to escape. You have to go see what else is out there. So
Tell me how your career progressed from Columbus. How many shows did you do at Columbus? What was the arc of your career?
So I started when I was 15.
By the way, notice how Jordan, even though he's famous, he's basically therapizing this guy. He's just talking to him, and he's like, I would like to learn more about you, right? That is the sign of an actual humble person, right? There you go. Tell me about you. Be genuinely curious about them.
And then I got a manager at a comedy club in Atlanta over Twitter, believe it or not.
Oh, look, well, Twitter was good for something.
I know, make or break you.
That's like the one time Twitter has been good for something.
Exactly. Well, this
it's
is
good
also
for getting
a time,
canceled, actually. If you want to get canceled,
it's kind
Twitter's
of
excellent
only
for
its
that.
use.
Yeah, I know that.
Jesus.
That is its primary use.
What else is it? It's just negativity. It's the worst app. People who thrive on Twitter rarely do well in life. It's so bad. But this was when Twitter was kind of brand new. So what would happen was comics that I was a fan of would come through the state of Ohio, whether Cleveland, Toledo, Dayton, Cincinnati, or Columbus. And this was a time where Twitter was so new, you could access anybody. Like, this was a time when like Ashton Kutcher was like the only person to have like 1 million followers on there. Like most celebrities had maybe 10,000 followers on there. You could tweet to somebody and they would see it and they would respond. So I would tweet to favorite comics of mine when they were coming through the state of Ohio. And I'd be like, hey, I'm a big fan, I'm a kid. Could I do a guest spot on your show? And some would say no, some would thankfully say yes.
So who gave you an early opportunity?
D.L. Hughley actually gave me my first ever guest spot, which was so funny because when I was 15 years old, my extent of my D.L. Hughley knowledge was just Soul Plane, where he played a bathroom attendant. His smallest credit to date has to be. I had no realization that he was one of the kings of comedy, like one of the greatest to ever do it and go on one of the most famous tours of all time. But he was so kind to me. He gave me my first guest spot. My second guest spot was Finesse Mitchell, and then it was Ralphie May was like a brother of.
It's really funny because he didn't know, he didn't treat the guy like a god, and he actually got the spot. I think there's a lesson to be learned in that.
Mine, he's one that really helped me out in my younger years. But through Twitter, there was this comedy club owner in Atlanta who knew DL for a very long time. And he saw DL Hughley and I just going back and forth, joking back and forth with each other on Twitter. He reached out. My mom and I drove down from Ohio to Atlanta. It's like a 9-hour drive to come perform at his club for a weekend. Went there. We hit it off really well. He explained to me the things he wanted to do for my career, and I didn't know any better. So I was like, yeah, however you want to help. And my mom was also like, yeah, whatever keeps him off drugs, I guess. So
did that work? Did it keep you off drugs?
Until like my early 20s, yeah,
Okay.
I would
well,
say
that's
so.
not bad. That's probably better. That's a better time to start than like 12.
Job. Yeah, exactly. I'm from
Indeed.
Ohio. I'm lucky I didn't brush my teeth with
Hilarious.
fentanyl growing up. It was bad. My hometown was so trashy.
Diversify your savings.
Sorry.
So he finds me on Twitter. We go down there, we meet, we hit it off, and he offers me to come down there the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. And I go down there and I live on a comics couch for 3 months, my entire summer break. I go down there and I'm doing 9 to 11 shows a week. I'm going to the malls, I'm passing out free tickets, I'm hanging posters up to promote shows. I'm going in to the comedy club at 3 p.m. to like practice my set while he throws tennis balls at me and honks horns and jingles, anything he can do to distract me to a very Mr. Miyagi.
That was part of the treat.
That's very clever, actually. That's the train against heckling, so you don't get distracted.
The training regimen.
Exactly. And I think to this day, I think it helps me keep my composure in the pocket. Like I'm not thrown for a loop when somebody yells out something.
That typical exposure therapy from a psychological perspective. Right?
Exactly. That's a way
face what
fancier
you're
way to
afraid
say
of.
it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So what way? So how did he know to do that? Do you think that's smart?
I'm not sure. He's a fantastic guy. His name's Gary Abdo. He's very prominent in the comedy community. He's helped out a lot of people starting out their career. Like he was very prominent in Chappelle's early years when he was like a late teenager. Earthquake.
Right. So he's probably seen people thrown by hecklers and so forth and by trouble because you can't get knocked out of your groove.
Well, his comedy club down there was called the Uptown Comedy Corner, and it was notoriously known as like
Heckler City,
one of the harshest comedy clubs in the country. It was a tough environment. Like they either loved you or they would boo you off stage.
Oh yeah.
So for me to go in there as a kid, yes, you have the novelty of like he's a kid, give him a chance.
Right.
But
only so far.
Yeah, so you got to get them in the first couple of minutes. Otherwise, they're not going to sit there and watch you do 5 or 10 minutes. They don't have that patience in them. So I go down there and I get trained in.
No. Most people don't have that patience. If you're not able to engage them, it's done.
Like one of the harshest environments possible. And in doing that, I meet more comics who are coming through the club. I would pretty much open for like anybody that came through the club down there. I met a lot of comics who lived out of LA. So then when I went back to high school for my senior year, I knew I didn't want to go to college. I knew comedy was what I wanted to do. So I flew out to Los Angeles and I took the CHESP, the California Proficiency Exam, which in certain states is kind of like college where you have to have a certain amount of credits to graduate high school. The CHESP is essentially a test you can take at any time that basically tests you out of high school. You've learned everything you need to learn.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
that's a great option.
It's fantastic. So I flew out there, took the test, came back. I had to wait like 2 weeks for my results, but I had a good feeling about it. So I was just going to school for 2 weeks and just like sleeping throughout class. I wouldn't do any of the work. I wouldn't take any of the tests.
How old were you at that point?
I just turned 17. Maybe I just turned 17.
Right. So actually, what's funny is that says that he's highly intelligent.
I was maybe still 16.
And so that's after you came back from LA.
Yes.
Right.
Came back from taking the test, waiting for the results, got the results back at like the first week of January, moved out to my friend Eric Griffin's couch 2 weeks after that. So I was about like 4 or 5 months early from graduating high school, moved out there, lived on his couch for the first couple of months. Then my manager at the time, his son graduated film school. He moved out to Los Angeles. I stayed on his couch for the next year. And I was just going to comedy clubs every single night. I would go and just hang out. Some of them would.
Sounds like a rags to riches story, right? Like, but clearly he practiced for years and years and years and years as a nobody, right? Until he became successful. And now at 28, he's pretty successful. That's what it sounds like to me.
Wouldn't even let me hang out inside until finally people would vouch for me. People wouldn't show up on the lineup. And where somebody was like, well, he's here.
All right, so you're
Just give
hanging
him a
around
chance.
enough to get your opportunity.
Exactly. But funny enough, sometimes I would get the opportunity to go on stage and I literally couldn't step foot in the comedy club until they were like announcing, and Matt Rife. And then I would have to run through into the comedy club, go on stage, and leave immediately after because I wasn't 21.
Right,
so they still had to abide by like their own rules in a very loophole way. And in doing that, I just kind of stayed consistent in the scene. I was getting more and more prominent stage time. I started to book smaller and smaller, turning into larger TV appearances, which was some Disney stuff that led to a bunch of MTV stuff. And then after I left all my MTV stuff, I just became really dedicated to stand up and transferring over to acting and producing and developing and all that kind of stuff.
So what did you do for MTV?
My first thing I did on there was Wild 'N Out. I did 4 seasons of that. I was like the youngest cast member. It was right after...
I've heard of this show.
Right after Pete Davidson left there to go do SNL, they needed a white guy. And I happened to fit like that exact mold. Went on there, learned so
that's
much.
a very strange diversity hire.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of
We're
course.
short of white guys. Yeah, let's call Matt.
Never
He's
hear
white.
it anymore.
No, that's not a likely diversity hire.
But it could not have been a better learning experience because I was a very insecure, shy kid, and I was going on a show with comics. This was the revamp of Wild 'N Out. This was after Kevin Hart, D. Ray Davis, Corey Holcomb, all these amazing, Cat Williams, all these fantastic comics had left the show, and they rebooted it with a lot of comics I knew from the Atlanta scene who were monsters. Carlos Miller, DC Young Fly, Chico Bean are all killers on stage, and I had to compete with them. And I knew I couldn't, but I at least had to hold my ground. And in doing that, I just...
That's very hard. All right. Okay. Yeah, sounds like a great origin story. Actually, quite interesting listen. All right. Thank you so much for listening, guys. So anyway, hit the like, hit the sub, hit all notifications, drop me a donation like Hunter M, Adrian R, Tom and Bobby, Dylan, Renaissance Press, and Brian. Shout out to you, most recent Patreon subscriber. If you're interested in buying my books, they can be found at bit.ly/heliosbooks. My Patreon is patreon.com/theheliosblog. If you want coaching, you can message me at theheliosblog@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, guys, especially if you listen to the end. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.